All I know is that we haven't seen the final twist or the final turn of this very compelling 2025 NFL season. The 49ers, there's a non-zero chance that the playoff opponent in the wild card round, unless the 49ers get the 1 seed, which is still possible, is the Carolina Panthers. They're now in first place in the NFC South. We're going to talk about last night's game, the Buccaneers collapsing. They are now losers in 6 of their past 8. 49ers did not get this version of Tampa Bay. Kirk Cousins beat Baker Mayfield on the road to knock Tampa Bay out of first place and out of that 4 seed in the NFC. I'll explain the NFC playoff picture in a little bit, but first we're going to be talking about Ricky Pearsall and his importance to this 49ers team. Ricky scored his first career touchdown at Tampa Bay last year, by the way. That's where the Falcons beat the Bucks yesterday on that field. That's also where Fred Warner got hurt. But I delved into this huge offensive analysis of the 49ers a few days ago. And the main takeaway was that the hinge point moving forward for the 49ers is Ricky Pearsall. This is yards per route run for San Francisco this year. Blue is good, red is bad. As you could see, the 49ers don't have a single receiver this season averaging over 2 yards per route run or scoring in the blue above average in yards per route run. They've got Christian McCaffrey, who's a running back. They've got George Kittle, who's a tight end. Ricky Pearsall's down at 1.53. They need that number for Ricky. He needs to be averaging over 2 yards per route run. Now, here's the good news for the 49ers. Over the first 4 games of this season, before Ricky Pearsall suffered the PCL injury, he scored at 2.27. So he would have been at the very top of this list with that performance stretched out over the entire year. But over the course of the past 3 games since Ricky Pearsall has returned from the knee injury, he has only 5 catches for 20 yards. That's something that absolutely must change. The 49ers are counting on either Brandon Aiyuk to return, which is increasingly unlikely, extremely unlikely at this point. George Kittle yesterday was talking about how sad the whole situation makes him. So if Aiyuk isn't happening, you need that production from Ricky Pearsall. He's the one that can generate some explosive plays. Not just that, he can generate space across the whole field by giving you that explosive, good route running production at the wide receiver position. That opens it up for everyone else. That's what gets this 49ers offense into a position where they're delivering more explosive plays. We have the article that I did on the defense up on the San Francisco Standard a couple days ago, and there's a stat on the offense in there as well where I looked through the explosive play rates of both the 49ers offense and the defense, what the defense has given up. The defense is scoring above average for the 49ers, which means they're giving up they're in the top 5 as far as the amount of explosive plays they're giving up in a good way. They're not giving up a lot of them. The offense, though, is in the bottom half of the league in terms of explosives, even though it is one of the more efficient offenses overall. That leads us to draw the simple conclusion that the step the 49ers can take forward to push this offense into the very elite rungs of football is to become more explosive, create more space on the outside, and ultimately that task comes back to developing some balance that you want at the top of the yards per route run chart. In 2023, when the 49ers had an elite offense, Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel both scored above 2 yards per route run at the top of this. So they obviously both in the blue. They had 2 wideouts. Now they have none. So that's the big weakness of this 49ers offense. They're not getting what they need to at the moment from the wide receiver position. Let's hear from Ricky Pearsall in that 49ers locker room.
Yeah, I mean, Ayuk is.
That's actually this is good. I first I have this quote from Brock Purdy. I'm gonna have to find the Pearsall one, but Brock Purdy explained what Ayuk brought to the table that obviously he isn't bringing right now. This is going to help create some of the context for what the 49ers are missing, and then we're going to play the clip from Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, I mean, Ayuk is. He's a baller. You know, he makes plays. He in man-to-man matchups does a great job of creating separation, and he's an explosive player, man. He gets the ball in his hands, and he can go get yak. And and bring juice to the offense when he's in, and run blocking. Aiyuk's got so many clips of getting in and blocking linebackers and safeties and corners and running downfield with a running back and blocking guys. Like he did it all, man, at receiver. So he did a great job with that. And obviously, I wish he's healthy to be able to be with us and play and roll. And but like I said before, and I've said in the past, like all the things off the field, like that's not my place to say anything. All I can say is I'd love to play with him, and in the past we've had such great times together and stuff. And so that's all I can really say about it. But yeah.
Well, you heard similar things from both Brock Purdy and George Kittle yesterday, and I think this is the united opinion of the 49ers. They would love to have Brandon Aiyuk. They're sad that whatever's happening outside of the scope of the injury, and nobody seems to be really sure from the outside, but they're sad that it's prevented him from playing. And I think the proof of where the 49ers are deficient is in the pudding of the offensive production this year. Top 10 across the board, including the run game, since George Kittle has come back against the Atlanta Falcons in week 7. With the top 10 metrics are everywhere with the exception of the explosive plays. And I show you the receiver yards per route run distribution that is not what it was. It's far from what it was in 2023. I think it's really, really clear where that final missing piece of this 49ers offense is. And Pearsall has the pressure on him to fill it because Brandon Aiyuk is very likely not walking through that door for the 49ers. All right, I've got the wrong banner up here. Let's get the new banner up. I know they got the John Lynch banner. We got to get this new 49ers update there. We'll just put this one up for the time being. They put these new timers on these banners on StreamYard to where I think they disappear after 10 seconds. No, the timer's off on this one. Good. It will stay there. I wanted to put Pearsall. Yesterday was Lynch. Yes, Lynch also talked about Fred Warner yesterday. We do have a good clip of Fred Warner from the Bay Area Host Committee event at Levi's Stadium ahead of the Super Bowl. Look at Warner with a little bit of a jog up on the stage. And then he almost left Patrick Willis hanging, but he was able to give Willis the fist bump. He noticed. There you go. But, Fred Warner does not do this. I mean, this was intentional, I think, unless he's trying to spark some intrigue about a potential return. I mean, we've been talking so much about that over the course of the past few days. We see him swimming. We know that he's lifting now. He's lifting lower body. Guys, it's only December 12th. Oh, a month from now is when the wild card round of the postseason is. I don't predict that Fred Warner will be on the field in the first round of the postseason, but I'm just trying to put all this into context. He got hurt at Tampa Bay October 6th. So it's just over 2 months since then, and this was a fractured and dislocated ankle. It was an ugly injury. Obviously, had to be carted off. Obviously, couldn't put weight on that thing until weeks after his surgery. We're now still over a month before the biggest games of the playoffs, before the NFC Championship game, and then obviously the Super Bowl. We're about 2 months away from the Super Bowl, and Fred Warner is already doing little jogs up on the stage. Fred Warner is swimming in Lake Tahoe. He's flutter kicking with full ankle extension in a lap pool. It's really hard for me to believe that if the 49ers advance far into the playoffs, that Fred Warner won't be able to play for them. Like, I just look at this guy. I see that he's rehabbing 6 hours a day. I see the little hints that he seems to be giving us at events like this, the little jogs. And then I see what he puts on social media. And then I see the nice fist bump with Patrick Willis. And I say, who's keeping him off the field if the 49ers advance deep into the playoffs? The 49ers might try, but it might end up being a legacy decision for Fred Warner. Anyway, let's talk about that playoff bracket, because I think things might have markedly changed yesterday. The 49ers are most likely to get the 5 seed if you look at the math. They have about an 11.8% chance to earn the 1 seed, but the highest percentage probability for the 49ers would be the number 5 seed. The 5 seed travels to play the number 4 seed in the first round of the playoffs. So if the playoffs started today, Seattle's in the 5 seed, they would travel to Charlotte to play the Carolina Panthers. You might notice a change in the complexion of teams here. The Panthers are now in that 4 spot and not Tampa Bay, who had been there prior to this. The Bucks lost last night 29-28 to the Atlanta Falcons. They blew a game at home. They blew a 2-touchdown lead, thereby relinquishing the number 1 spot in the NFC South. The top 4 playoff spots go to division leaders / winners. So that's why you've got a 7-6 team mixed in here with 10 and 9-win teams. Unfortunately, the 49ers and the Bears at 9 wins are seated lower than the Carolina Panthers at 7 wins, but those are the rules. If you win your division, you get an automatic home game in the postseason. But now it is Carolina at 7-6 ahead of Tampa Bay at 7-7. A couple crazy stats for you. Baker Mayfield, as the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, was 30-31. Everybody was saying, oh, Baker Mayfield has turned it around. Baker Mayfield's a different quarterback. Baker Mayfield, since his time in Cleveland, so he's been in Carolina, 1 game with the Rams, and now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is 30-31. Seems that not much has changed. Now, he's had spurts of better play. People were chanting his name, MVP, during the 49ers-Buccaneers game on October 6th. But he's back to helming a 500 team. Tampa Bay is now 7-7. So I think that the coronations of Baker Mayfield's resurgence were premature. I think that he's a talented quarterback, but I also think that he probably is what people think that Brock Purdy is. Just somebody who really, really needs the talent around him to elevate him. Otherwise, there's going to be a losing streak, and things are going to even out at 500 over the course of the long run. He's a guy that's in that 30 million range for quarterbacks. He's not a $50 million guy. Again, I've said this twice now. The proof is in the pudding here as well. Brock Purdy's results as a QB speak for themselves. He is ranked either number 1 or in the top 5 of any metric that you throw out there ever since he entered the league in 2022. Baker Mayfield has been a 10 to 15 guy based on any metric that you put out there. And then the results team-wide, since quarterback is the most important position, tend to follow suit over the longer run. So Purdy's won a lot of games with the 49ers. He's winning a lot of games this year. They're 3-0 since he's returned. And Baker Mayfield, he's the ultimate 30-31 guy. Anyway, the 49ers may not even have to play Baker in the postseason if this slide for Tampa Bay continues. Take a look at Carolina's schedule coming up. You can see here that they're coming off their bye week as well. Same week 14 buys the 49ers. They play the Saints, who are a little bit more intriguing now. New Orleans beat Tampa Bay recently. I mean, that's part of these 6 losses in 8 games for the Bucks. But December 21st versus Tampa, Carolina versus Tampa, that game might be for the NFC South, or the January 4th game might be for the NFC South. The Panthers finish with 2 of 3 games against Tampa Bay. They also have a game against the Seattle Seahawks squeezed in there. Carolina has looked increasingly dangerous as this season has gone along. And maybe, just maybe, that game against the Seahawks on December 28th in Charlotte will impact the NFC race as well. The 49ers play Seattle the week after that on January 4th. But the South is clearly the division without a juggernaut in this NFC. It looked like Tampa Bay might be the team that runs away with it earlier in this season, but they've just proven to be too damn mediocre to do that. Carolina, a very inconsistent Carolina team, has closed the gap on them and now surpassed them. Atlanta, I mean, maybe if they had gone to Kirk Cousins earlier this year, could also be in that pit of mediocrity at the top of the NFC South. Cousins did outduel Baker Mayfield yesterday, but Atlanta is out of this race. Atlanta couldn't even give the 49ers and the Rams and everybody in the NFC some help. They got blown out at home a few days ago by the Seattle Seahawks. But then they turn around to Thursday Night Football, and they do beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Crazy, crazy stuff. I wrote an article on the San Francisco Standard that I do want to show you, if I can get it open here. Here it is. The 49ers have the best quarterback room in the NFL. How it could be even better in 2026. Link is in the description. Right now, I'm not logged in on this page for the Standard, so you could see, you could click there to sign up to the Standard. That would be a good way to support the channel and support everything that I do. But Curtis Rourke started practicing this week for the 49ers. He's unlikely to be activated, but I think that this helps us get a little bit of perspective. The 49ers, their next two quarterbacks that they face are Cam Ward, who's 23 years old, and Phillip Rivers, likely Phillip Rivers, who's 44, just turned 44 this month, of the Indianapolis Colts. Phillip Rivers was almost of legal drinking age when Cam Ward was born. So the 49ers go from one extreme to the next in as far as the age and the experience level of the next two QBs whom they're likely to face. The Rivers situation in Indianapolis should feel familiar for the 49ers because Indy is a really good team, or was a really good team. Maybe I should put that in the past tense, who suffered mass QB injuries. Same thing happened to the 2022 49ers, who first lost Trey Lance. Then they lost Jimmy Garoppolo. Ultimately, they lost Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game, and they also lost his backup Josh Johnson in the NFC title game. 4 quarterback injuries for the 49ers back in 2022. It got so bad that the 49ers actually called up Phillip Rivers and had him sit in on Zoom meetings with a 49ers playbook, learning San Francisco's installs over the back half of the season and the playoffs. Rivers was going to be the quarterback had the 49ers beaten the Philadelphia Eagles and made it to the Super Bowl, because both Purdy and Josh Johnson got hurt. The 49ers would have had to win that game without a QB. I know Christian McCaffrey was taking snaps. Purdy came back in without a functional arm. But Rivers was the plan because he had already been sitting in on Zoom meetings. He was 41 years old at the time. Now the Colts, who have seen injuries to Anthony Richardson, to Daniel Jones, to Riley Leonard. Now the Colts, 2 years later, 3 years later, it's 3 years later, it's 2025, have actually brought in Phillip Rivers at age 44 to do what Kyle Shanahan thought Phillip Rivers might have to do for his football team back in 2022. And that is, as an old man, provide the missing piece at the most important position with a good roster around him. 49ers are going to get to see the Colts next week. The difference between Rivers now and the Rivers that the 49ers had in on Zoom meetings back in 2022, learning the playbook installs, is that Rivers is now a grandpa, literally. He's got 10 kids, and his oldest daughter in 2024 had her first baby. So Phillip Rivers is a grandpa. I think Brett Favre was a grandpa when he was a quarterback, became a grandfather, I think, in 2010. I'm sure it's happened a couple other times in the league, but generally this is a young man's sport. But Phillip Rivers is defying that. He might even reset his Hall of Fame clock if he's promoted off the practice squad or activated off the practice squad to play in the game, either this weekend against the Seattle Seahawks or next week against the 49ers. That's a Monday Night Football game. Anyway, consider where the 49ers were in 2022 when they ran out of QBs versus where they are now. And we can knock on wood, but they're healthy at quarterback right now. They have what is very clearly the best quarterback room in the NFL. And one could argue they had the best room in 2022, but everybody got hurt. So they have the best quarterback room in the NFL that's also healthy now. The 49ers have Purdy, number 2 in adjusted EPA. Mac Jones, number 7 in adjusted EPA. And then this guy that I put up on the screen, Curtis Rourke, their 7th round draft pick, had his practice window opened. 49ers could theoretically enter 2026 because they have Mac Jones still under contract for 2026 with a QB room like the one they had from 1989 to 1993, 3 deep. This is the franchise that carried Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Steve Bono for 5 of those years in the late 80s heading into the early 90s. John Lynch on KMBR this week said that Bill Walsh stockpiled at that position, and it paid off for Bill Walsh. It is the most important position. 49ers don't necessarily have to trade Mac Jones. They don't like a return price for Mac Jones. They can keep him along with Purdy, along with Curtis Rourke, and go 3 deep at the position in 2026. It is option power for the 49ers. Now, I think if they can get a 2nd-round pick in return for Mac Jones, similar to how Kansas City sent a 2 to the 49ers for Alex Smith in 2023, that probably ends up being worth it. But the point of the whole 3-week window right now for Curtis Rourke is that they can evaluate what they have in this rookie coming off of the torn ACL. They can see at practice if they believe he can be a competent backup for them. And they can thereby determine if Mac Jones would indeed be expendable in a trade. I think in an ideal world as a coach, if you just are focused on the roster you have in front of you and not on draft picks and any of the stuff that the front office has to worry about, you'd rather have Mac Jones on the team. He went 5-3 this year as the starter. He ranks number 7 in adjusted EPA. That to me is amazing. That seals any potential dispute as to who has the best quarterback room in this league. Well, the 49ers have 2 QBs in the top 7 of adjusted efficiency ratings. That should blow your mind. Like, it's hard to find one in the top 15. Baker Mayfield's not in the top 7 of the adjusted efficiency ratings. But Mac Jones is. Brock Purdy's all the way up at number 2. Jordan Love is number 1. Maybe I could get the rankings up on the screen for you in a little bit. We've got Ricky Pearsall in the locker room, by the way. I promised you that I would share some of this Pearsall video since we're talking about the importance of the Purdy Pearsall connection. Let's hear from Ricky yesterday in that 49ers locker room.
Just handling what I can, control what I can control. That's always my mindset. As soon as I start worrying about the other things, that's when you're going to kind of drive yourself nuts. And, I try not to do that. And so just knowing what I can control. And for me, it's, being available when I can for Brock, showing up on those 3rd downs when I can, and making those plays and opportunities when they do come my way to help this team win ball games. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when we see a W on the board, that's all that matters. I don't care about, the stats or whatever.
The one thing that stood out to me, show up on those 3rd downs. It's something that Ricky Pearsall did back in Cleveland in a huge way right before halftime. They needed that 1st down to set up the bigger pass to George Kittle. It was one of the smoother routes that we've seen this season from Pearsall, one of the best throws we've seen from Brock Purdy this year. That was against the wind. I say this a lot. Football fields are over 53 yards wide, so stretching the field in that way takes real arm talent, especially when you're throwing against the Lake Erie wind in Cleveland. Purdy delivered. Pearsall got the separation against the good defense. And even though he didn't light up the stat sheet against Cleveland, that catch to move the chains was massive. Because if the 49ers don't move the chains there, they punt. If they punt, then they enter halftime with a deficit. And that defense for the 49ers at the time was leaking oil. I talk about the offense needing to hog the ball, support the defense. The 49ers defense had just given up a 10 or 11 play drive where the first 10 plays in a row were runs. The Browns had marched right down the field to take the lead. It was 8-7 at the time. So one of those things where the 49ers, it was mandatory for San Francisco to rebut there at the end of the first half, especially since Cleveland was going to be getting the ball first in the third quarter, and Pearsall delivered on that third down. And, when I talk about yards per route run, when I talk about the need for space making at the receiver position to open things up even further for McCaffrey and George Kittle, I think that the biggest contributions from the wideout position can come on third down. Obvious passing downs. You need to beat the man in front of you. If it's man, you need to find the soft spot in the zone if that's the coverage from the defense. I go back to the first 3rd and long of this season at Seattle, and Purdy hit Pearsall on the post right in between the hashes over the middle of the field. And it was a wow play. It was a timing play. It was an anticipatory throw. It was a trust throw. Pearsall was at the spot that he needed to be in when the ball got there. And it was an extension of what we had seen in training camp, which was fire chemistry between Purdy and Pearsall. And I think when a receiver is such a rhythm-based guy like Ricky, and that's an ultimate compliment to a receiver, right? Because it shows that he's a really good route runner. He's got a really good feel for the zones on the field. He's got a really good rapport with his quarterback. But when a receiver had those characteristics like Ricky Pearsall, he benefits immensely from uninterrupted practice time with his quarterback. So in the case of this training camp, everybody was worried about Ricky at the start because he was coming off of the was it a knee issue or a hamstring issue? It was a hamstring issue coming into training camp. He missed the first 2 practices, and everybody, this is going to be bad because Ricky Pearsall can't practice with Brock Purdy. He got in there and practiced for the rest of camp, absolutely lit it up on a day in, day out basis, carried that over into the regular season. And what you saw was a yards per route run rating that was, get this up on the screen, that was the tops of this list. Again, 2.27 was the yards per route run figure that Ricky Pearsall was putting up over the first 4 weeks of this season. It was exactly what the 49ers needed, especially without Brandon Aiyuk coming out of that receiver position. Then he slammed his knee down into the turf against Jacksonville on a play that I think was a catch, by the way. Ricky showed me on his phone. He's like, hey, I got both feet in bounds. There was a nice photo. I think it was a catch against Jacksonville, but they didn't call it a catch, and they also saw Ricky Pearsall exit the game after that because he hurt the PCL, the posterior cruciate ligament in his knee. He was out as long as Brock Purdy after that Jacksonville loss. And it just seems to me that over the past 3 games, he hadn't been integrated into what the 49ers are doing at nearly the same efficiency level as weeks 1 to 4. And it's because, in my opinion, there hasn't been that rhythm buildup through practice that we saw over the course of training camp and the preseason, that uninterrupted buildup that helped the 49ers and Purdy and Pearsall be on the same page. They've now had 3 games. They've now had the bye week. They're facing the number 27 defense in football in the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. Not sure if there's any rain or whatever in the forecast, but I don't think there's severe weather in the forecast. It is a home game, and the 49ers need to figure this connection out now. That's how they take this offense to the next level. When we talk about the team tiers, the upper right, and moving the 49ers further to the right offensively, it's dependent on the receiver position. It's dependent on finding yards per route run production that actually outpaces what a running back is giving you in Christian McCaffrey, what a receiver, what a tight end is giving you in George Kittle. You need to be at the top of that receiver room, and that's what Ricky Pearsall has the talent to do for the 49ers. All right, let's answer some questions here. Friday morning, 49ers practice one more time before facing Tennessee. If San Francisco wins up to 10-4, we'll see if they can move up in playoff seeding this weekend. It's all dependent on what the Rams and what the Seattle Seahawks do. We're obviously going to be watching the Rams and the Detroit Lions very closely. San Francisco needs one more loss from the Rams to control their own destiny in the NFC West. They need that loss from the Rams, and they need a loss from the Green Bay Packers to control their own destiny for the number 1 seed. Here's a look at the standings. As you can see, the Rams at 10-3 and the Packers at 9-3. Those are two teams that the 49ers cannot pass without another loss from one of those two teams. Or maybe another tie from Green Bay would lower their winning percentage beneath the 49ers, although I'm not sure how the ties are counted exactly. So a loss would be easier. A loss would also be more likely. Green Bay plays Denver this weekend. That's a massive game. And then Green Bay plays at the Chicago Bears. Maybe there could be a loss against the Ravens in there, but the Ravens aren't the Ravens of old. And I highly, highly doubt that the Packers would lose to the Minnesota Vikings if there was something on the line January 4th. So maybe the biggest chance for the Packers to lose, which is necessary for the 49ers as they take aim at that number 1 seed, maybe the biggest chance for them to lose would be this weekend against the Denver Broncos. Meanwhile, again, the Rams at home, SoFi Stadium against the Lions, and then it's a quick Thursday night turnaround, Rams at Seahawks. So this coming week, I mean, stuff is about to hit in a flurry. I said that this week and last week, obviously, was the bye. We could chill a little bit. We've chilled a bit. I've written these big articles about the 49ers performance on both offense and defense. Here's the defense one with Robert Saleh. We've delved deeply into both of those units with all the statistics. And, for offense, we went into yards per route run, but for defense, I talked about all of them yesterday. Bend but don't break, how Saleh is making magic with this unit. So we've reset. The 49ers have actually gained a seeding spot over the course of the bye week. And now stuff is going to start hitting in a flurry. The Titans game may not compel you all too much. I mean, spoiler alert, the Titans aren't good. They've won only 2 games this year, but they are coming off a win against Cleveland. Tony Pollard is dangerous as a running back offensively. Cam Ward is a bad rookie quarterback for the Titans, and Jeffrey Simmons is an awesome player at defensive tackle who could line up anywhere. Arden Key also is on this Tennessee team. He could rush the quarterback. It's not a terrible front, but it is a bad overall defense. 49ers are heavy favorites for a reason. So even though that may not be compelling, it's important that San Francisco takes care of business to move to 10-4, and then they could sit back with the popcorn and watch what happens around the rest of the league. Denver over Green Bay, that's a rooting interest. And Detroit over the Rams, that's another rooting interest. And then you cheer for whoever is playing the Seahawks as well, although the 49ers have a chance to take a bite out of the Seahawks themselves on January 4th. All right, so check out all those articles up on the Standard. Now I'm going to check out the comment section to see some good questions. If the 49ers beat the Seahawks, they have the tie over them, right? Yeah, the 49ers have tiebreakers over everybody right now in the NFC because they have the best conference record at 8-2. If they beat the Seahawks again, they are also 2-0 head-to-head against Seattle, and that would only ensure that their conference record is better. The 49ers right now have only 2 more conference games, one of which is against Seattle. The other one's against the Bears the week prior to that on December 28th. The Seahawks do play the Indianapolis Colts this week. I don't know if Phillip Rivers has been announced as the starter yet, or if that's going to happen this week, or if he needs a little bit more build-up time. I think he is familiar with the Colts system, so that might speed things up. But I'd be very surprised at this point if it wasn't Phillip Rivers against the 49ers on December 22nd. Yes, the Seahawks game is going to for sure be on January 4th. Even if they flex the game to Sunday Night Football, it'll be on the night of January 4th. Is Philip Rivers really a grandfather? Yes, he became a grandfather in 2024. We have not been joking about that. That is not alleged. That is true. What do I think of Javon Baker? Would he be a good gadget guy? I think Javon Baker has a lot of potential as a receiver. He had some off-field issues in New England. There was a situation where he was at the airport in Boston, and I think he got a ticket for his car was blocking the entrance, or was double parked or something. And then he went on an Instagram live rant, and the Patriots disciplined him after that. There have been a couple issues, and I think that that's something that Javon Baker obviously is going to have to clean up to make a future for himself in this league. It's a zero risk signing for the 49ers. He's on the practice squad. They can work with him in the building, and they can figure out where exactly he can fit, and maybe even flex him up for a game if they need him. But for now, you didn't sign Javon Baker to be a plug and play guy at receiver. You're always working to improve the depth of the unit. You like his route running. You think he's fast enough. You think that he could fit and contribute at this level. You have a practice squad spot open for him. He's still young, which is a boost for the 49ers, and then you see where it goes from there. But it's not like, okay, Javon Baker's on the team now. He's going to be used as a gadget weapon on Sunday. That's not how quickly this is going to operate. He's going to have to earn some trust and develop with the 49ers on their practice squad. It will be interesting to see Jonathan Taylor against the Seahawks. I mean, and that's regardless of who's playing quarterback for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor is one of the best backs in the game. So I think on any given Sunday, that team is still dangerous. Obviously, things not going the way that they envisioned back when everybody was healthy and Daniel Jones was playing at a high level, but they still do have Jonathan Taylor, and there's a reason they believe that plugging in a 44-year-old Philip Rivers might be effective, and it's because they've got a good team around him. You know, Rivers might not be mobile. He jokes that he never was mobile, so there's no difference between age 44 and 34. But even a lack of mobility can be masked in many ways by a really, really good rushing attack and a good outlet option. As the 49ers know, with Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, Jonathan Taylor can do some of that stuff too for Seattle. And if Rivers is old man Rivers, Grandpa Rivers out there, probably not going to be relying on him to air out the football all too far downfield. You're going to want a lot of check down, shorter options, and Jonathan Taylor is somebody who does give you that out of the backfield. Do I think the 49ers will pay Jennings in the offseason or let him walk? I think, they've got some extra cash to play with now, assuming that Brandon Aiyuk is not going to be on this team next year. I don't think that Jauan Jennings is a $20-25 million guy. I think this season has shown that, but I think he deserves a pay bump. I mean, I always said that over the course of this past offseason that maybe the 49ers could find an agreement with Jennings for the longer term on the Sooner side of the spectrum, because but they just weren't able to find that middle ground. And I think that Jennings bet on himself, thinking that he could get the free agency and have a chance at that $20 million splash, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, we've looked at the yards per route run chart. Jauan Jennings is he's had the broken ribs, and that's been really tough, but you could see here 1.38 yards per route run as a chance to be the featured guy with so many injuries. That number would have had to been over 2 yards per route run for Jennings to be a $20 million guy. And if he's not that, if he's only at 12 to 15 million, I think that's something the 49ers can absolutely afford within the context of their salary cap, especially with all this money opening up and the voiding of the Brandon Aiyuk guarantees. Fred's in the back of the tank right now. It's going to be The Empire Strikes Back. I guess I'm mixing my metaphors there because Luke Skywalker was in the back of the tank. Oh, Darth Vader's in the back of the tank too, right? So yeah, we'll go with the Empire Strikes Back theme. Heard some great nickname for Fred Warner. You know, they call him the Predator or the Freditor. The Freditor is better. We had never seen anyone like him physically at the linebacker position. Special player. All right, everybody go and check out the San Francisco Standard. Appreciate you all. Have a great Friday. We'll talk to you a little bit later today with the 49ers practice report.